It started with a whisper, then a silence, then something far more troubling, an absence. Not in words, but in movement. Cargo that once traversed the globe, goods that once flowed like blood through the veins of the world economy, were suddenly nowhere to be found. On June 9, 2025, something snapped. The global trade network didn't crash with a bang. It simply stopped answering the phone. One by one, seaports from Shanghai to Singapore, from Hamburg to Rotterdam, began removing US shipments from their active logistics schedules. No announcements. No press conferences. Just a quiet blackout of American goods. The ships weren't late. They were never coming. Containers with US soybeans, electronics, chemicals, auto parts, industrial machines, and even frozen meat were left waiting on docks, with no space aboard. The rejection was surgical. And make no mistake, this was not a glitch in the system. It was retaliation. What triggered this slow-motion trade blockade? It wasn't war. It wasn't pirates in the Gulf or hackers on Wall Street. It was tariffs. American tariffs. The latest wave of sweeping trade duties and export controls, pushed through by the White House just weeks earlier, under the guise of protecting American industry. Instead, they triggered a backlash that has rapidly become a full-blown international boycott, one that is reshaping the global supply chain, but more devastatingly, tearing holes into the heart of the US economy. If you're watching this from a port city, chances are you've already noticed it. The once massive container ships are smaller. The traffic is lighter. The cranes are eerily still. At the port of Los Angeles alone, there were 10 blank sailings in the first 14 days of June. That's 10 ships, each capable of carrying 10,000 to 15,000 containers, that simply didn't come. These are vessels that typically run on tight schedules, bringing in parts, electronics, appliances, and sending out agricultural exports and manufacturing products. They didn't just skip a stop, they skipped America. Blank sailings have now become the new normal. In the Trans-Pacific trade route, nearly 25% of scheduled services were cancelled in May, and the trend accelerated into June. What we are seeing now is not merely a logistical bottleneck or seasonal adjustment. This is a strategic severance of trade ties. A conscious shift by global logistics giants to reduce exposure to American risk. And that's where things get frightening. Because shipping companies, Master of Science, Maersk, COSCO, ONE, Hapag-Lloyd, they are not political actors. They follow profit, efficiency, and stability. So when these carriers decide to cut service to American ports, it's because they see US markets not as opportunities, but as liabilities. As unstable, unpredictable, and increasingly isolated. That's not just embarrassing. That's catastrophic. Let's talk about exports. US soybeans have long been a cornerstone of global food supply. China, once the largest buyer, has now replaced US contracts with Brazilian ones almost entirely. Nearly 85% of soybean shipments out of the Pacific Northwest are stalled. Grain elevators in the Midwest are filling up, and barges down the Mississippi are idling. Farm operators from Iowa to Kansas are sitting on product they can't move. It's the 1980s farm crisis all over again, but this time driven by geopolitics, not weather or debt. Auto parts manufactured in the US, especially those relying on export-heavy contracts with Mexico, Canada, and South Korea, are stuck in limbo. Some manufacturers are being told their products won't be accepted at destination ports unless origin paperwork is rerouted through a secondary partner country. It's trade laundering in real time. Entire containers of Kentucky-built transmissions and Illinois-forged brake systems are being re-exported through Canadian and Panamanian ports to avoid retaliation. That costs money, time, trust, and it kills margins. And what about imports? That's where the pain becomes personal. US consumers are now seeing the first wave of product shortages, especially in electronics and household goods. The end of China's air cargo exemption for small-value packages, announced in early May, immediately slashed air cargo capacity by 25% on key Asia U.S. routes. If you're wondering why your Amazon orders are delayed, or why your favorite electronics retailer is out of stock, now you know. With fewer ships arriving and even fewer goods making it to distribution centers, prices are climbing across the board. It's not inflation in the traditional sense. It's scarcity pricing. When you can't guarantee supply, you charge what you can for what's left. For small business owners, this is a nightmare. They are being forced to quote 3 prices to customers: one if goods arrive as planned, one if they arrive with tariff costs, and one if they don't arrive at all. Guess which one's becoming more common? There's a common myth that America is self-sufficient. That the US doesn't need the rest of the world. But the reality is, global trade is woven into the very fabric of American life. Your fridge. Built with imported electronics. Your car. Assembled with foreign sensors, wiring, and microchips. Even your groceries, yes, the garlic, avocados, and spices, rely on a trade system that spans oceans. When that system breaks, your lifestyle goes with it. And it's not just consumers taking the hit. The logistics industry is bleeding. Trucking volume has dropped across major corridors. Freight rail traffic is slowing, especially for intermodal containers, which are now sitting longer at port yards due to delays or cancellations. Freight brokerages are reporting double-digit drops in volume. Warehouses are either overflowing with goods no one wants or sitting empty because expected deliveries never showed up. FedEx has begun downsizing its freight division. UPS is quietly cutting back on capacity contracts with major retailers. Several regional freight firms, those that carry goods between ports and small towns, have shut down completely in the last 2 weeks. Their clients. Gone. Their routes. Cancelled. Their future. Non-existent. And here's the kicker, this isn't a temporary disruption. This is a reshaping of global supply lines. Countries that once relied on US components are now turning to the European Union, Japan, and China to replace them. The US is no longer seen as the world's reliable supplier. It's seen as the world's unpredictable partner. And unpredictability is poison in logistics. Retaliation is coming in waves. China, Brazil, and South Korea have introduced targeted port policies, slow-walking American customs clearance, increasing inspection rates, or prioritizing other nations' shipments. It's not overt bans. It's friction. Delays. Uncertainty. And that's all it takes. When a port adds a 72-hour delay to every American shipment, carriers and buyers start looking elsewhere. Insurance premiums for shipping US goods have climbed too. Lloyd's of London just added a new surcharge for high-risk US export routes. Why? Because policy volatility and tariff risk now count as insurable hazards. Let that sink in. America's trade policy is now being treated as a financial risk class. And here's something even more alarming. Other countries are quietly creating multilateral frameworks to work around the US altogether. Think CPTPP 2.0 without America. Think ASEAN-Europe digital shipping corridors that sidestep US ports entirely. When Brazil, India, and Indonesia form new cargo inspection treaties that exclude American customs, it's not a headline, but it's a warning. Domestic manufacturing, often hailed as the big winner of tariffs, is facing the cruelest irony. Without parts, without containers, without reliable outbound freight, US factories are slowing production. Not because of competition, but because of isolation. Assembly lines in Michigan, Ohio, and Texas are operating at reduced capacity due to component shortages. And that leads to furloughs, layoffs, and lost contracts. Even American tech firms, who hope to benefit from onshoring, are now facing blowback. Export bans and retaliatory regulations in foreign markets mean less access to overseas customers. Data centers, cloud services, and semiconductors are facing new licensing barriers in Asia. India recently announced a tech transparency tax that only applies to US firms, citing the need to protect against economic coercion. This is what a trade war looks like in 2025. Not missiles or embargoes. Just invisible hands rerouting ships, redirecting orders, and rewriting rules. It's subtle. It's quiet. And it's devastating. So the big question becomes, how long can this go on? There's no end in sight. The US administration continues to double down, believing domestic strength will weather the storm. But they underestimate the scale of the backlash. They forget that in a world of container ships, air freight, and data cables, isolation is not strength, it's starvation. And as ordinary Americans, the effects are becoming impossible to ignore. Grocery stores are seeing gaps in imported produce. Electronics stores are postponing new product releases. Auto dealers have reduced inventory. And small-town economies, those that rely on export businesses, trucking, and port-adjacent warehousing, are already in crisis. This isn't just about the economy. It's about identity. For decades, the US was the engine of global trade. Now, it risks becoming a ghost, an afterthought in a system that's learning to function without it. If you've noticed delays, rising prices, or missing products in your life lately, you're not imagining it. You're living it. This is the ripple effect of blank sailings. The retaliation of a world that's tired of playing by America's rules. If this opened your eyes, like this video, subscribe, and share it. Because silence won't protect us. Only awareness will. Drop a comment below. What's the first product you noticed missing from shelves? What's the first price hike you felt? Let's track this together. Because if this trade war continues unchecked, the question isn't if America will feel it, it's how deep the scars will run.